There is an output that people can relate to and people can see and people can believe that they have contributed to this. And, you know, I might say there's this controversy regarding whether they should go to the National Assembly, whether they should not go to, and they're both right in the sense that what the president said. Now, if you are going to have a national conference dialogue, there is going to be a bit of disruption of regular processes in the country. There is also need for some amount of appropriation, because those dialogues, those conferences somebody has to fund it. And at least the federal government should be able to fund at least 52% of it, which is what they get from the revenue.
Does that mean it can't happen this year? Or with the environment?
It's not a day. Dialogue is not a day. It's a series. That's what I say. It's got to be a progression. The most important thing is when it starts and when it stops, and it must stop before the end of next year. Wow. Now, it's also possible that it's a process.
That's an election year.
Well,
before the election. They normally say that, look, a year before the election, economic activities in most cases just come to its lowest.
But this is not entirely an economic activity. This is a political and a development
won't
activity.
It affect this one?
No.
Remember, some politicians have suggested, look, why don't you just move this to after the elections? Because it will disrupt something.
I'll tell you, supposing you move it to after elections, and you do the elections, somebody will say that election was rigged. And when they say that election is rigged, the person who wins wouldn't have the credibility.
If that person is not INEC or the courts, do we take it seriously?
Well, it depends. I mean, you've known what's happened to elections because people always complain. 2015 will come, they will say, the person who won is not supposed to have won, he's not supposed to, he doesn't have the legitimacy to conduct a national conference, and then we'll go back to square one, and then we start to perambulate as we tend to...
Sorry, Chamberlain, because that's where I come in again, because I asked you then, don't you think that this will amount to us rigmaroling? Because you talked about, sometimes we keep talking about deja vu. I've seen this before. Some people have actually done something before. We've always known what we wanted as a people, and we've always talked, and we've been talking, and it hasn't actually amounted to any kind of development. And here we are again in another roller coaster, going slowly. By the time we gather momentum and the outcome finally is before us, what do we do with it?
We're going to have a series of outcomes. That's why I say that each stage of the process will have an output, will have a product, will have something that says, okay, we've reached this stage, now let's go to the next stage. Development is a brick-by-brick affair, and it is not instant milk that you shop, put milk and put water and it's voila. No, you have to take time. We have not taken time to develop, to build our development structures. Institutional building. I was watching the last interview you had with the Honorable Member of the House of Reps, and he said we should build around institutions, not around individuals. And at this point in time, I would like to urge the members of the House of Reps to enable a referendum. At the end of the day, the conclusion, the national conference must end with a resolution. When you have a conference, you must end up with a resolution or a communique.
So you want it to go back to the assembly?
There is no, look, this National Assembly is part of Nigeria, that they are part of the institution. I will just urge them to do the right thing. They should realize that they are the youngest institution in Nigeria's governance structure. If the what hits the fan, and things go belly up, the legislative arm of government is the first that always suffers. The judiciary is more entrenched. The executive arm of government is more entrenched. This process of a national conference is actually deepening democracy. And when you deepen democracy, the eventual beneficiary is the legislative arm of government. So the legislative arm of government should do one thing. They should enable a referendum of the outcome of the national conference before the conference starts. They should do that.
Then they should. Sorry to interrupt you there, but you did say that those who said it should go to the National Assembly and those who said it should go to a referendum straight up. Are both right.
What I'm saying is this. Once this advisory committee comes out with a plan, you will see that there are financial implications. You will see that there are logistics implications. And therefore, for you to appropriate financially, you must go to the National Assembly, if you understand that. Two, a lot of people are you know, having a controversy whether the law or the Constitution as it is written enables a referendum or not. And that if it doesn't enable a referendum, it is the National Assembly that can pass a motion or a law that says, okay, Nigerians shall have an opportunity for a referendum at the end of the national conference to choose either or. A referendum is a yes or no question. You want this new constitution or you want the 1999 constitution as amended. So the National Assembly, clearly, they have a role to play. But what I'm urging them to do is that they should think, build the National Assembly, not the individuals in the National Assembly. Because at the end of the day, they will be known for time immemorial as those who use their position to institutionalize their institution.
So the relevance that you are saying for the National Assembly, the relevance you're saying for them is even before the conference itself takes place.
And throughout the process, even before the conference and throughout the process.
You're saying a role for them in appropriation, you're saying a role for them in lawmaking to enable the conference hold?
In enabling a referendum, not hold. They cannot stop people from discussing. The National Assembly has no such power to stop people from discussing. They don't have power to stop people from meeting. They don't have power to stop people from concluding. They don't have power to stop people from asking them, especially the people who voted for them, to ask them to do something. So they need to do that. Having said that, the ultimate decision of the end product of the conference must lie with the people of Nigeria, and that is where the referendum comes in.
Let's look at this debate. I mean, perspectives that have come up as a result of this one. You know, something that is a leadership challenge, a leadership question that we have. I mean, if that is sorted out, we don't know if we will need this conference. They say, Igwando Tone says, for instance, look at corruption. Everyone seems to be on the same page in terms of what needs to be done. No, not what needs to be done, that we need to do away with corruption. But how they're fighting it or how they're going about it, of course, they're all on different pages. So take that, for instance. If we had a leadership that says, okay, Lord, let's all be on the same page. We're doing the same thing. We understand the same purpose, the same methodology, the same strategy we're carrying out in fighting corruption. And if we tackle that and get it right, leadership, they say, can solve that challenge. And now that we all identify it, what will the conference do differently that leadership has not done?
Well, you said leadership has not done. I mean, leadership, yes, there's a leadership challenge. But leaderships are enabled. And there's an environment that supports leadership. At times, even good leadership is crowded out because the environment is disenabling of good leadership. So if you look at the situation of Nigeria, you would find out that even those who have been saints, how many saints and how many good boys have actually been publicly rewarded and publicly acknowledged by our society and by the things we put together, you know. So the leadership question, yes. And leadership, you don't have to hold a particular position to be a leader. You can be a leader of thought. So the leadership question is permeating all over the place. On the issue of corruption, you see, corruption is enabled. There is an environment that makes corruption easier. There are some environments that make it less easy. If you have a pipeline of leaking taps, what you need to do before you start driving away the people who go fetch water from those leaking taps is to fix the leaking taps. So there is something that makes corruption. Corruption is a disease that manifests from an underlying environment. When you have a public financial management system, for example, that has loopholes, what do? If you have an accountability and transparency structure that is opaque, that is not clear, how do you prevent corruption? So fighting corruption in Nigeria is like as if you let go 20 rats in this room and then you want to start chasing them. You go look for their mother. What you need to do is to go and look for the mother rat and stop it from breeding. Corruption is bred.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if the conference holds with the strategy you have proposed, the bottom-up approach, communities first, and then they come up with their recommendations, it still comes down to leadership. Because who or how will those recommendations be implemented?
Now, the whole dialogue process, if it is done well, that in itself is a leadership training program for every Nigerian. in the sense that what is leadership? Leaders must be capable.